Hello, everyone. Hello, hello. Good to see smiling faces. Let me just give a pause for a minute. Make sure that everybody that is attending can go ahead and get in the room. Okay. We'll see if everybody's in. Okay, so a few things to go over as we dive in. You are definitely in the right place if you are one of our members, one of our program members already, or one of our insider memberships that is looking for the workshop of the week. What we're doing because of holidays, we've got a little bit of condensed work time, and so I am doing my monthly webinar and our weekly workshop combined together. So it's going to be a little bit of a different format than what you're used to, or if you're new to memberships and you haven't been to our workshops before, this is going to be a little bit different. Our workshops with our memberships and programs are largely more Q&A and education related to what you're going through personally and in your own program, excuse me. And so webinars are definitely a lot more about education and information, but this is a webinar topic that applies so much to our people in programs. So I thought I wanted to put that together. We're going to spend the next hour together. So we'll be closing off at noon, and I will give a good hard line to that because I know everybody's busy and has to get back to the rest of their life too. So the webinar will go over the topic for today, which has been pretty prevalent, I would say, in the people entering from our programs, which is digestive issues. Now, digestion, IBS, IBD has been my forte for years and years and years. That's what changed in me, and that's started my health journey, and that's why I ended up as a naturopathic practitioner. And so the topic that really spurred us this time was people talking about really not having a good understanding of allergies versus intolerances and sensitivities, which are definitely three different physiological differences. So we're going to go over that. And then the question was, how come I can't just stop eating dairy and then it go away? Like, it should clear my body after a couple of days. So I'm going to really get into the immune system and the nervous system and the neurogenic response so that hopefully you can have some answers on what is happening. So you are in the right place. If you are a member, if you are a program participant and you're looking for your workshop, or if you got directed here because of the webinar promotion that we were letting you know what the topic was for this month. You are in the right place. If you have weird rashes, a skin condition that hasn't gone away, eczema, psoriasis, if you have IBS, IBD, digestive things that just they can be debilitating or they can just last a couple days, but you want to solve the issue. If you've been told that you have allergies or sensitivities, if you have symptoms, even though your food allergy test has said nothing, you're in the right place. If you don't understand why food bothers you, you're in the right place. If you have had a bunch of lab work and testing and nobody can seem to come up with an answer for you, you're in the right place. If you don't have answers or the only answers are medications and you would rather try to see what you can learn about your body and help assist your body that way. A few housekeeping things. I have a ton of info that I'm going to educate on. Got a little scrap paper here that I'm going to be taking notes on so that as I'm talking about things, if I'm thinking of supplements or modalities or things that could be useful for you, I'm going to write them down. And then I'm going to give all the education. I'm going to talk about those people that are brand new to us here, how you can get involved in a program if you feel that that's the right thing for you. And then at the end, I'm going to tie it all up together with all the little notes that I've taken and give you just bing, 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 a list of supplements, a list of things to consider, modalities, things that we've been writing down through our time together today so that you can see if those things apply to you. Okay, so the first thing, I've got my little list over here of definitely there are, let's see, what do we got here? We have got 13 topics that I absolutely want to go over today. We only have an hour to do it in. You can feel free to add something into the chat if you would like to. I don't have a moderator helping me today, so I will do my best to go back and forth between them. But it drives me crazy to sign up for a webinar. I'm a busy gal and I don't like a lot of introduction, and let's just dive down. Let's just get to it. So that's what we're going to do. We're just going to get to it. I am, if you don't know me, if you were referred to me, but you don't really know what I am or what I do, my name is Amanda Wentland. I have a doctorate in naturopathic medicine and a PhD in natural medicine, and I have a master's in clinical nutrition. So I'm a clinical nutritionist, and I serve as a nutritionist and a traditional naturopath. So somewhat complementary, more so than alternative. I do like to make use of medical colleagues and medical counterparts and kind of pull all of that together. I like to bridge the gap and kind of have an integrative protocol. And so I came because that was my issue. I mean, I had illnesses that had no answers. They just got worse and worse and worse. I ended up even in a wheelchair with inability to move my arms and legs. And I had a lot of learning to do. So once I learned and I made those changes in myself, and I could correct what was going on in my body with the help of God, I kept learning, and then decided that I would go out and teach other people what I had learned as well. So that's a little bit about me. Feel free to decide to listen or not to listen. That is up to you. So the first thing, we're talking today about food sensitivities, allergies. What most people don't realize is that allergy, intolerance, and sensitivity are three very different things. So we have to clear that up first. Sometimes people will say, I know it's a food, but I've had allergy testing and nothing shows up. And so I can share my story with that. Was I was having horrible digestive symptoms. I got allergy testing done, which is painful, by the way. It was not enjoyable. Had allergy testing done, and I was allergic to nothing. Nothing showed up on the allergy test, including latex. And that triggered me because it is an obvious anaphylactic swelling reaction to latex. I don't think it was anaphylactic at the time, but it definitely developed as it went. So it's possible the allergy test missed it because it wasn't very heightened at that point. Who knows? But latex did not show up, and it was an obvious allergy that I knew that I had. And that led me to start looking for other options, other reasons that I could have some sort of allergy type response, but it not show up on an allergy test. And then that just, like I said, paved the path for everything else that I learned at that, past that. So an allergy test, we have to understand, it means that the body responds to an allergen and the body creates an antibody. So the body responds to the protein in the allergen, and the immune system attaches an IgE, an immunoglobulin, or an antibody, sorry, that attaches to that part, that little particle, and that puts a mark on that particle. So anytime that it comes in or near the body again, the immune system has already become aware of it, and it knows to put on a full-on attack. It knows to fight it. So the key thing is it puts a little marker on it, and it involves the immune system. An allergy is usually immediate, within a couple of hours. An intolerance, on the other hand, that is more of an enzyme related, a lack of an enzyme. So usually people will feel digestive symptoms to an intolerance. And that can be where you could have been eating a food, and then all of a sudden your body decides that it doesn't like it. It can reject it after you've been eating a food. And it's usually because the body has gotten overwhelmed, the nervous system has gotten overwhelmed, the immune system has gotten overwhelmed. And then there's sensitivity. So the sensitivity is the third option that an allergy type response can be. And this can be a sensitivity to anything, and it can be anywhere in the body. Sometimes people see this more as mental, emotional symptoms, mood, brain fog, behavioral type things. But basically what you can kind of divide it into two. It is either an allergen and the body has reacted to a protein that has caused a mark to attach to it. The intolerance and the sensitivity, the body will mark that in a different way by the nervous system remembering what happened with that. So the nervous system will remember everything that you've ever been through, everything that you've ever gone through. And so when something bad happens, it records that, as a program, as an experience. And then if something similar comes back into the picture, goes back to the nervous system program, and the nervous system says, oh, we've experienced this before. And so here's what we did last time. And so this is what we have to keep on doing. So the cells will store that memory, the cells will store that message, and they will act out the exact same every time. So let me know if in the comments, if you have, or you can send me a text, those of you that have access to my DMs too. I'd love to know if you've been diagnosed with allergies, or if you've had that experience as well, where you had allergy testing and it showed that you had no allergies. I would love to see how many of us have had that experience. Now, when the immune system gets involved, this is probably the most important part to understand when we are thinking about why don't the symptoms go away, like 2 days after I eat the food? Why do the symptoms linger? And this is because when we were talking about the nervous system, like I said, will record every experience you've ever had. That's what it has to do, because the nervous system's job is to keep you alive. So it is constantly scanning for threats in the environment. Externally, internally, your thoughts, your emotions, experiences that you've had before, the nervous system just kind of files it all away, and then pulls it up when there's another experience that looks similar to that. So let's say you had a bad response to dairy, and your immune, usually there are many other things that are going on. There's other cellular inflammation that's happening. It's usually multiple systems that have proven dysfunctional. There usually is kind of a cycle or a storm of things that are happening. But the nervous system will get the direction from the nervous system that says, we are in danger. And if we are in danger, there's nothing that your brain can stop it from doing. It is a natural, physiological, biochemical cascade that you cannot direct. So if the nervous system is picking up the clues from your senses, your sensations, foods that are coming in, and it says, this is dangerous for me, it will proceed to have a cascade of hormones like cortisol, adrenaline, norepinephrine, epinephrine. Norepinephrine and epinephrine are infinitely famous for food rejection. So if we know that those biochemicals are at play, we know that the symptoms of food digestion is going to be a natural consequence of that. So when the nervous system has determined it's not safe, it is now operating a cascade of biochemicals to protect you in that non-safe place. And food rejection starts to become one of them, because if you are running from a tiger, you're not going to stop and think about eating. You're not going to stop and think about having a bowel movement, or you're going to have rapid bowel movements to get things out so that you can continue to fight or flee. So it really does all come down to what I call neurogenesis, where the illness is created in the nervous system through experiences that get reported. So you could be going along just fine in life, eating whatever you want to, and maybe you have had an intolerance or an allergy, and your body has taken care of it. It just deals with it. It may be causing inflammation that you aren't really aware of, or it's causing inflammation, but the symptoms aren't bad enough for you to do something about. And then all of a sudden, maybe we go through a period of emotional stress or external stress, or a stressor that happens within the body. And all of a sudden, it's like the straw that broke the camel's back. And all of a sudden, the long use of all of that biochemical hormone cascade starts to be overwhelming for the body, and it pulls in a little bit more to protect itself. So when the nervous system sends that type of signal, it tells the rest of the systems what to do, particularly the metabolic and the immune systems. And it says, okay, everybody, this is dangerous. I want everybody to protect. And so when this comes in, I want you to put on a protective response, and the cells puff up in inflammation so that nothing can get in. They may even close off some receptor door sites and not allow things to get in, which means toxins cannot get out either. And you can't get in nutrients or supports that could help with the symptoms that you've got going on. So the immune system very much gets involved. The nervous system is the dictator over that. So in our program, that those two systems absolutely have to be key priority. The third one is the metabolic system. So even though there are multiple functional systems in the body, we really start with the cellular inflammation, what the nervous system is saying, what it's dictating to the immune system, and what the immune system is telling the metabolic system, and how that all works together and telling the cells what they need to do. See, the cells just compile the information and they just play out that program, and they will continue to play out that program until they get new information. Conventional methods will not work because it isn't like an acute strategy. It isn't like what they're trying to do is suppress the symptoms. Suppressing of the symptoms isn't wise, in my opinion, because the symptoms are there as conversation starters. The body doesn't just use words and tell us what it wants and needs. It has to give us clues. And so it will give us clues in our labs. It will give us clues in our symptoms. It will give us clues in our feelings and in our thoughts. And so our job is to see all of those things as a tool, not get overly upset and worried about the symptoms we're having or the mood we're having, but to understand why is the body doing what it's doing, knowing that it will always try to protect you. The nervous system will always try to keep you safe and alive. And the whole body, all of the functions of the body are trying to keep you safe. So instead of suppressing something, we need to understand the communication. We need to understand why the body is doing what it's doing. And then we need to get behind it and help the body to do what job it's trying to serve you with. We also need to understand that, especially if we've been in a state of chronic stress or anxiety, or we've got some traumas or some things in our history, and the body has been giving us signals and we've chosen not to listen. I don't have time right now. I've got to put this aside. I'll worry about this later. It's just diarrhea. I can handle it. It'll go away. It usually changes after a couple of days. It's fine. The body has been giving us signals. And I'm a firm believer that if we don't address that, we don't give it, we don't acknowledge it, it will always try to be acknowledged. And it will develop a distrust of us. So we have to get the body to start trusting us again. And that means we have to understand why it's having the symptoms that it's having, what the communication is, and where the nervous system got off track, and what the messaging is for our bodies. So that is one thing that doesn't happen with conventional medicine, because, conventional medicine is trying to help you with the acute things, and they're trying to keep you safe and alive as well. And so they are trying to identify and then stop. It's very interventional. It very much is come in and stop a process and let's just get it out of the way. And if you know me, you know I am a big advocate of complementary systems working together. So I'm not poo-pooing medical by any means. I'm just saying there's a time and a place for everything. And I'm always least invasive first. And I always want to try to understand what the body is trying to do before we would just stop a process. We're forcing the body to do something. And there again, that is partly why the body has learned to stop trusting us. So in my opinion, we definitely have to understand why the body is doing what it's doing. One thing that we have to understand about food, it is not just the food that we have to learn from. So you could have an issue with dairy. Let's take dairy. That's a pretty common one. Dairy does not just break down in the body. If you eat some cheese, it doesn't just break down into smaller pieces so that you can digest it. It breaks down into smaller pieces, and the smallest of pieces. It breaks down into what we call the metabolites, the chemistry that makes up that food. So like what makes the strawberry red? It's a chemical, a phenolic chemical that makes the strawberry red. It's like part of the program that is in that strawberry seed to develop. It's not going to be a brown lump of, food matter. It's going to have characteristics, and those characteristics, the sweetness, the taste, the color, that's all going to come from a phenolic, a metabolite program. And so the food will break down into these metabolites, little tiny food biochemicals. And the biochemicals become your neurotransmitters, and the neurotransmitters become your hormones. So when we have a hormonal issue, side note here, when we have a hormonal issue, we have to go back and look at the neurotransmitters, and we have to look at the metabolites and the foods that they came from, because they are all going to play part in that. And there again, this is something that we really can't determine with diagnostic clinical medical practices typically. The metabolite then becomes something that we have to observe. It may not be the food itself, it may be one of the metabolites. So dairy, for example, breaks down into tyramine or tryptophan, excuse me. Now, every time that you eat the dairy and it has this tyramine in it, and your body has marked it as a danger, it is going to also mark anything else that has tyramine in it or tryptophan in it, or whatever the biochemical makeup of each different food is. So all of a sudden we end up with this net of foods that we're not actually allergic to. We're not even naturally intolerant to them, but we've become sensitive to them because they contain that same metabolite. So if you've ever known anybody, or if you yourself, you're like, all of a sudden I couldn't eat dairy, and then I couldn't eat grapefruit or pineapple, and then I couldn't eat tomatoes, and then all of a sudden I couldn't eat mushrooms either. And the list just gets bigger and bigger, and it'll even get to the point where it's like, now fragrances bother me. Now I have multiple chemical sensitivity. And that is part of that metabolite phenolic net that we're talking about. So the goal is not to avoid all of those foods, because if you know, you've tried avoiding foods, and what happens is you just keep avoiding more and more foods, and your list of yes foods gets very, very narrow. I can attest to that. I had gotten to a point of such illness in my body, and nobody could understand what was going on, to the point where the only thing I could tolerate was ground beef. And I had been a vegan, so there was some come to Jesus moments with that, I can tell you. So we can't just look at the food. It cannot be, just cut and dried like that. It usually is what the food breaks down into, the biochemical processes then that happen, and how they interrelate with your own chemistry, and not just digestively. So when you're asking the question about why does my body not just clear it? Like, I ate dairy today, it should be out of my system 24 hours. It should be passed through my system, and it should not continue to cause reaction in me. And the answer to that is, it's because it's not just the dairy itself, and it's probably not even the net of other sensitivities. It's the immune system and the neurogenesis creation of it. So when you ate that dairy, yes, it did clear the body and it went through the body, but it activated the immune system. Think how high key our immune system is. I mean, it puts on a full defense off of the teeny tiniest little bacteria or viruses. They are tiny, and yet the nervous system sees them and puts on a full immune response to help you get over that. So if you have a tiny morsel, a bite of something, or a whole platter of something, your immune system's definitely going to notice that. And it's going to do the same thing, because it goes back into the nervous system storage, and it says, oh, here's the program. We've done this before. Here's what happened. We're going to create that same response now because it's happening again. And so it will create the same immune system response. The cells will puff up in inflammation. They will go to protect themselves. And now we've got shutdown of processes, because you've shifted yourself now back into that survival biochemical code. So our trick is to try to stay out of that survival chemistry and to get more into the healing chemistry. That is the only place that we can actually heal, is when that healing chemistry is in orchestration. And again, you can't talk your way into that. It is picked up, like I said, by all of the things externally and internally to give the code to the nervous system on which biochemical cascade we should be running. So I'm going to add that to my little list of some of the maybe techniques to get into that healing biochemistry. But I'm going to tell you, it is a process. It becomes habit after a while. You've been in habit to follow this program. And so it's easy to just follow that program. And in fact, the brain will always try to save you energy. And so it's going to go back to something it already knows, because it doesn't have to figure it out and solve it. So our goal with neurogenesis is we have to retrain that chronic survival biochemicals. We have to train that into the nervous system that produces the healing biochemicals. Once that happens, the body takes over and the systems are getting the messages they need that are not producing the symptoms any longer. Okay. People ask all the time. I had got a question on the DM, so I'm going to bring that up. Yes, John, you said, I'm going to kind of paraphrase here. Dairy farmer, always been able to eat, grain and potatoes and dairy. Why now is dairy a problem? And my answer to that, John, is that I know our bodies will deal with a lot of things for us for a long period of time. And likely symptoms are happening and we're just not putting it together. So if I were to look back over the course of my history, when I was in kindergarten and first grade, I remember going to lunch and they would force you to eat everything on your plate, and food allergies were just not a thing back then. And I would drink that little carton of milk, and she made sure that I drank the whole milk. And I was a little person. It was hard to drink all of that. I know, play my little fiddle note, but I would throw up every day. And I would end up in the nurse's office. And it was so embarrassing. I remember that as just a tiny person, and it was horrible to feel sick all the time. In my own little tiny head, I just thought that it was because I was being forced to drink so much and I just didn't have the room for it. Well, at 26 years old was finally when it was identified that I had gluten lactose sensitivities. And so your body can be producing symptoms that you're just not putting together, or that the people that are around you aren't privy to these things as well. So you could be having dry skin and it could be coming from the dairy this whole time and you wouldn't have known. You could have had fatigue, you could have had eczema, you could have had pimples, it could have been really anything that could have been an ongoing symptom letting you know that it's a problem, and we just wouldn't have known to put it together. So one of the things we do when you enter program with us is we would do a bioenergetic cellular look at how your body tolerates various foods. So the common foods that we tend to have sensitivity or intolerant or allergic issues to, we test those things in a energetic way, like what happens to the inflammation levels in the cells when we add this food in. And so it's a really safe way to see what your body is responding to and then help develop a dietary plan. Now, we cannot, please don't do this. If there's a few things that I want to say, don't do this. Don't think that it's going to just go away. Like, I stopped having the food 3 days ago. How come I don't feel better yet? We have been so trained into this Tylenol for the headache mentality. If you have a food issue, if it's a sensitivity, if it's an intolerance, if it's an allergy, you fall into the chronic bucket. This is not an acute concern, even though it might cause acute diarrhea or an acute flare of eczema, for example, or an acute flare of IBS. You are in the chronic category. This is not like, oh, we have a headache, we should stop that headache. What works to stop the headache? The Tylenol? No. The Excedrin? No. Ibuprofen? Yeah. Ding, ding, ding. Okay, headache gone. It's not like an acute thing like that. And side note to that, I will tell you the headache is not going to come for no reason either. But it's a very easy one to say, that's a symptom that we want to get rid of. What is the fix for it? And then it's gone. It does not work like that in chronic illness. So whether we're dealing with any type of chronic illness or we're dealing with these food allergies like we're talking about, your cells have gotten messages, remember, from the nervous system and from the biochemistry. And so they are as they are. This is how they are. They're presenting as they are. They're presenting the symptoms as they are. They're going to keep doing that because the next thing that the cells do is they create baby cells. Mom and dad create baby cells, and they are going to look identical to their image. They are going to carry over the exact same program again and again and again, unless new information gets put in. So we put in new information, and that may be eliminating a food, a trigger food. That may be reducing inflammation. It may be a supplement. It may be putting in a different food. It may be any kind of information that's going to change the cell's activity, the cell's information. But it's so incremental, it's not going to change your symptom yet. And this generation looks better. And we keep putting in new information, and then the next generation looks better. And then we keep putting in new information, and the next generation looks better and better and better and better. Symptoms after a period of time will start to reduce. But what really happens is as the cell layers are getting better and better and better, we do this long enough without insight and in the immune system's further inflammation until the tissues change and the cells no longer recognize the trigger. We have to do it long enough where the cells do not remember the program to incite inflammation to the dairy or whatever the food is that you're removing. When the tissue has changed is when you finally, the tissues don't create the symptom because they're not degraded tissue any longer. See over here with our example with the headache and finding the Tylenol, the tissue hasn't degraded. Okay, but over here with chronic illness, tissue has changed. And that's the problem. So people will, try to hasten that process. This is why they say it's about a month for every year that you've had a condition if you nutritionally want to start healthfully supporting your system to change and put in new information like that. I will tell you it's pretty common with people that come into programs with me that there will be some food intolerance. Usually we see a good amount of cellular inflammation and we see metabolic discord. And so metabolic discord and cellular inflammation is just a bad combination to have now a very rejective response. The cells get really defensive. They're telling the nervous system the messages like, we are not safe. Something's going on down here. I can't clear things. My lymph is getting congested. My elimination capabilities aren't as good. I keep creating inflammation. Something's going on. And so that message usually is that we have to kind of halt some of the metabolism. We have to kind of get a little bit more simple. And so the message that our body hears is it will start having some metabolic issue with some of the typical common foods, usually the ones you eat most frequently. So those generally are more sensitivity or intolerances, depending on what your genetics are. Those usually are pretty superficial. They are not going to be the cure-all. Stopping the food is not going to be a cure-all, but it is going to give the cells a break. It at least is going to take away that constant creation of inflammation. And if there's not all that inflammatory fluid to have to clear, it's going to clear up your lymphatic system, which is going to help release your fascia, which is going to help influence your nervous system. It's going to help with all of your detox organs. So a lot of the people that do come into my programs, we generally will find some foods that we want to capitalize on the ones that are helpful, and we want to take away for a period of time the ones that are potentially not helping you. So it's not good or bad, it's helpful or not helpful. And it changes over time. So if you are in program, and that's one of your questions, because I think there were 3-4 forums this week that were talking about this very thing, which is what spurred this webinar. So if you are avoiding food because we've had a conversation and determined what was helpful and what was not helpful, it's likely not long-term. And it's likely that you don't even have an allergy to the food. If you went to the allergist, it probably wouldn't say, oh, you don't have to avoid that. But that's missing all of the processes that we just talked about, cellular inflammation and the detox, the fluid and the nervous system involvement in all of that. So we're going beyond just diagnostic testing that marks something as bad. So please don't say after 3 days of trying a food diet, well, nothing's getting better. I'm not feeling any better. Or even if you've got some supplements that you're taking, well, nothing's getting better. Don't say that. Remember what I said about the cellular changes. We need to do the information, new information long enough, practice new things, practice causing health. And then until the tissue itself has changed and the cells don't remember that old program. So no, I would not expect when you're working with me, I don't do a lot of symptom relievers, because what that means is we do a lot of supplements to relieve your symptom, just like they would use medications to stop the symptoms. One, I want there to be true healing. I want us to understand what the body's trying to do so that we can correct any imbalances or dysfunctions. I don't want to just suppress a symptom and now you feel better. I do that at risk to myself and my business, because if it takes you a long time and you give up, you could say, oh, that didn't work for me. It didn't work for you because you're expecting Tylenol to the headache. So understand that about my philosophy. It is really meant to help you in the long-term healing. Now, we can absolutely work on symptom support, symptom suppressors at the same time to feel good enough so that you can keep on going. Sometimes we just need to see that there is change that's happening while we're changing all of the stuff that's underneath. Okay, so when you are in program, you have to speak up and say, you know, this symptom is really affecting the quality of my life. Can we work on that? Understanding that we're going to work in multiple layers then. Okay, we'll work on symptoms, but we're going to still work on those foundational support systems as well. The other story that I hear actually, I can't say frequently, but often enough, is it's not working. I'll tell a story of a woman that came in, and I learn from everybody. So I appreciate, I'm absolutely not making fun of anybody. I appreciate the stories that come in because it helps me to do it better for the next person. So she said, it's not working. And I said, okay, tell me what you mean it's not working. Well, it's not working. I still have symptoms. Okay, tell me more. Give me more words. What's not working? What symptoms are you feeling? Well, I'm still having diarrhea. I'm like, okay, how many times are you having diarrhea? And she said about 6. And I said, how many times were you having it last month? And she said about 20. And that was accurate to my notes. And I said, so tell me what's not working. And it's because we have this Tylenol to the headache mentality. The fact that you were at 20 episodes of diarrhea, now down to 6 episodes of diarrhea, that is successful. It means you are a work in progress. It means the cells are changing. We want to get to that point where the tissues have changed. Now, maybe I'm an anomaly, but I think that there are more and more people that are experiencing this. But I was diagnosed with IBD, multiple versions of diagnoses, and I don't have any diagnoses any longer. I don't have medications. I don't even have supplements because I don't have symptoms. And it's not that I'm just in remission. There isn't anything present. There's no damaged tissue. There's no inflammation to note. And it was drastic change of me causing health. And it was not just stopping a food. There were other things we had to do to give the cells other information. And the final key component, which took like a pretty severe reaction to me to finally start putting 2 and 2 together, that the nervous system is the key that we've been missing this whole time. So I started creating more around the idea of neurogenesis, that the illness is created in the nervous system. So those people that are in program with me, the underlying thing that we're working on is retraining that neurogenic pattern, retraining the neural pathways so that we can work with the body and we can also work with the nervous system and that automated responsive biochemical cascade. Let's see, what else do I have on my list? We're doing pretty good. I've gotten 10 out of the 13 that I wanted to talk about. So it's 11:42. We're going to be out of here at noon. If I did not get to your chat comments or questions, I usually pull those together into other workshops. So when you're in program with us, you have opportunity and access at these workshops. They're at least every other week, if not every week. If you cannot attend them, I still answer the questions anonymously in the workshop, and then I will post the replay in your program. Okay, let's see. So we've talked about other sensitivities. It is very common. That's another question popped up from our DM. It's very common for other sensitivities to crop up. I stress not to worry about every new thing that crops up when you're a work in progress and we're working on it. It's something as easy as just making a note of it, and let's keep working on the functional systems, making sure that the organs and the cells can do as they need to, as they're programmed to, and change the programs that aren't working. And that's where the neurogenic work come in. So if you've heard me say neurogenesis a few times, I have a new book, watch for it. It's coming out in the spring called The Primal Question. But I have all kinds of books and my podcast and social media and all kinds of places where I talk about neurogenesis all the time. So definitely start perking your ear to that and picking up on some of that stuff, because I do believe that is the cause and the correction. I think that's a huge part. That is my personal opinion. And I am on a mission to teach people about neurogenic symptoms, neurogenic illnesses that get created. So if you are in program already, you already are committed to this. For those of you that are listening in that found this webinar from other means, and you do want to be involved in our neurogenic program and work on these things, it is up to a year. We want to give the cells time to change, like we said, and we want to be there with you while those cells are changing. Our program is digital education. A case manager checks in with you weekly. We have recurring bioenergetic assessments, food panels, phenolic panels that we run, neurotransmitter panels, hormone things, and it all gets bundled into one, and you're followed through the whole time. So no, it's not, you have to just do it on your own. The education modules are do that on your own in between times. So normally you see a practitioner, you do some things, you see them again in 4 to 6 weeks for a follow-up. In my opinion, you might as well take advantage of those. So I've created modules of digital lessons to teach you to cause health, things that you can be working on while you're waiting for that follow-up. So that essentially makes up the program. You have an initial and you have a series of follow-ups, but you have this digital education that's running along the entire thing with your own protocol laid on top of it. And you have a case manager that checks in with you to make sure that you're doing well, keeping you as a bridge connected to me. And you have these workshops. So these workshops are your place to have more direct time with me. You can attend live or you can watch the replays. I'm going to tell you, because it's the end of the year and we're kind of lumping this webinar with our workshops, I'm going to let you know, for you guys that have stuck it out and listened to this webinar this whole time, at the end of the year, we are changing some of our programs. Our program, I lump it all together. It's $4,200 for the whole year for everything included in that. If you are participating in that, you want to join on to that, I'm going to give you a one-time discount. You're going to get it at our old rate of $3,200. The door is open from now until next Friday. So, and we're only going to take 6 more people. We have 6 more people that we have room for before we start the next year. So, let's see, I'm going to put, I believe I can put the link right in the chat here. I'm going to put the link in the chat for us. Give me a second. If you are in program already, and it didn't answer your question, I'm really hoping that it definitely answered the questions that you had. If not, go back to the group workshop program, go to the form, and in that form, you can type your question in again. If you need a little bit more clarity, type the question in again. I do answer those questions anonymously. So you can, you definitely can do that. And then I'll try to re-answer that. Otherwise, always just keep a notepad. So when your case manager checks in or you have your next session with me, bring that question up again if it was not clear enough for you. So I did put a link. I absolutely would love to fill the rest of those spots. I like to serve as many people as I possibly can. I suffered horribly and was left to suffer on my own. And I do not think it has to cost a lot of money. I absolutely know. I worked with over 5,000 people on digestion and neurogenic specific illnesses. Especially if you have anxiety, stress, or trauma, this is it's absolutely necessary. And I've combined it all in a way to work with all of those factors. So if you're one of those people where things have not worked out for you, if you're in program already, be patient. Usually the questions come up when you're in those initial sessions. Be patient. You have a whole process that you have to work through. And if you are not yet in program, you definitely need to take a look at it. Ask yourself if it sounds like truth or hope. If you are on the fence and you're thinking, this sounds really good, it's the first I've heard of it though, and I would like a decision call. So I put in special decision calls. I'm putting a Calendly link into the chat right now. It is a free call. It will help you ask your personal questions and see if our program is right for you. Okay, now I said that if you waited until the end, as I've been kind of keeping notes on everything, I would give you the a list. So get out some pen and paper. I will give you a list of things. This is not in any way a protocol, a personal prescription or care plan. These are things that I typically will tend to look for. There are things that you can get started with right away. It is not going to be Tylenol to the headache. It is not going to, it should hopefully provide some relief and some things to get started with. They are not going to be the end all. Okay. If you have found this place and you are one of those people, the trauma chemistry has to be resolved. The stress, anxiety, biochemicals that are keeping you in the survival chemical cascade, that has to be resolved. I will tell you the supplements will definitely help. It'll start giving more information, new information to those cells. And you may even feel like you're really healed after that. And that's great. And I'm glad that you're feeling better. But what is typical and why they say that autoimmune is incurable or IBS, IBD is incurable is because they don't go far enough to make all the changes that have changed the biochemical cascade and that have changed the tissue. So now the next stressor comes up and you're right back where you started. So that happened to me 3 times. I know, I know because I've been there, and I'm trying to help you save yourself time and money and pain. So if you are that place, save yourself some time and don't let it get to that point when there is an obvious answer right here and you know the exact cost, and then it ends at that. So we want to teach you all those things, and then it's up to you. Okay, so some of the things that you can work on right away: digestive enzymes. Always, because I am not working with you directly, if you decide not to work with me directly, then you need to talk with the person that you rely on, whether that's your primary care or your health practitioner or your nutritionist. Talk about these particular options. Chances are good, if they're on a medical path, they may not know a lot about this because it's not things that are generally talked about or taught in typical conventional medicine colleges. Nutritionists will definitely know about things like digestive enzymes. Should you or should you not use a probiotic at this point? I am not in favor of probiotics at the beginning of your struggle. The reason why is because most people do not know that there are just so many options of species and combinations of species in formula, and you need to have the right species. You can make your symptoms worse. If there's active infection or active inflammation, I know, everybody talks about Bilardi. If you, or not Bilardi, sorry, Bifido. But if you're using Bifido and you have very sensitive intestines and inflammation, it's going to make it worse. Yes, we need that at some point, just not in the beginning. So I'm very particular with probiotics. We do not add them right away at the beginning. I like to look at like natural antibiotic type things. So having foods, marjoram, thyme, sage, oregano, rosemary. Those would be my go-to herbs, not in tincture form. Spices, add them to the foods that you're eating using these spices. They have natural antibiotic properties to them. And I actually would look at some sort of use of some oregano oils, but I would not just go and take it willy-nilly. You definitely do need to have some conversation. But spices that you can add to your food, that is definitely an option that you're not going to run into a lot of interaction risk and negative things with that. If you are on medications, obviously always talk to your doctor about it. Talk to your pharmacist if you're feeling like you need a second opinion on that. Or have an appointment, grab my Calendly link and let's have an appointment and we can see what we need to do to get you started. So probiotics, not so much. I would put them away until later. Probiotic foods. I would not put probiotic foods in right away either. For the same reasons. We don't know what the infection or inflammation is, but also you don't know if you're having a histamine response. You don't know if you're having something like SIBO. You don't know if the fermented foods are causing further histamine. They are aged foods. And if you're having a histamine response, probiotic foods can definitely be compounding your problem. Some of the things you can do, get back to nature as close as possible. Fruits and veggies are fantastic. Usually when people have digestive concerns, if you notice, everybody always says, in my office anyway, the lettuce just goes right through me. Likely because you don't have the enzyme production that is helping you to digest your food. So we're back to digestive enzymes. That is generally a safe thing for most people to do. Again, ask your questions of your team, of your people. But get back to nature as close as possible. Stay away from processed things. That's not even close to food. I don't look for it as, is it healthy food or unhealthy food? I look at it as, is it food? A food is only going to be one of two things, food or food stuff. Food means it nourishes your body. Food stuff means it can go in your body, but it doesn't necessarily, it definitely doesn't nourish. And it most likely causes harm as well. So an apple is a food. Sugared applesauce is a food stuff. Potato chips are a food stuff. Ice cream is a food stuff. Hamburger helper is a food stuff. Pot pies are a food stuff. Trying to think of things that bread is a food stuff. Homemade bread, definitely a food, but it is also a congester. Most people overeat congesters. In our program, in our neurogenic program, I teach you the 4 different functions of food so that you know if you're eating too many congesters or not. But what you can do right now, quality proteins, fruits and veggies, but stay away from the leafies right now and go for vegetables that you can steam. At least you're starting to break those down so that the body doesn't have to do as much work when it comes in. And I know, isn't that funny? Everybody always says green leafies, and I will say that too, when your body is prepared for that. Let's see, other supplements. I'm not a big fan of just promoting supplements without having an understanding of what the body is doing. I would say in general, people have more problems because they skip meals, particularly if they skip breakfast. That's something you can do right away. Eat within half an hour of waking. Don't be doing detoxes and herbal cleanses when you don't know what your body is doing or what your lymph and liver are capable of. Not a very good idea. And what's one last tip that I can give you? That would be kind of primary, how I start people right away. I'm not going to tell you stress management, because what we really need to learn is actually stress resilience, and that we learn in the neurogenic program. But I would definitely say start paying attention to the signaling messages that your body might be informing your nervous system of. So if you notice that you're tense a lot, notice that you're tense and relax the tension. Notice if you're clenching your jaw and relax the jaw. That is one simple thing that you can start doing right away to start sending that survival message to kind of start tipping the scale. And absolutely in program, those of you that are already in program, we will continue to work on training the parasympathetic. And those of you that are joining the program, I'm excited to get to work with you. Again, I put the link to just, if you are ready and you've heard me before and you've been around and you're just ready to get started, click that link. It will guide you to a form, and that's our clue to get started with you. So that form has to be completed either way. It allows you to select if you want bioenergetic studies with that, or if you want additional ones. So that form kind of is the next step for you. So you would click the link, you would make your purchase of the program, and then we would take over from there, and we would have an initial evaluation together, you and I. And then if you are considering you want to have more conversation, you want to have more of a decision, the Calendly link is right there. It is a $180 call if you don't show up. Okay, so just kind of keep that in mind. I love to have conversation. I love to educate. It is a free call unless you don't show up. So let's keep causing health. I hope that was very helpful. We will see you in our next workshop or webinar.